The September 18th meeting of the Scarborough Planning Board will please come to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Who is, in the absence of Doreen, who is going to call the roll?
I'll do it.
All right, thank you.
Bennett Flanders,
Here.
Noah Perlu,
Here.
James Hebert,
Here.
Rachel Hendrickson,
Here.
Roger Beely,
Here.
Jen Ladd,
Here.
Rick Meinking.
Here. Thank you. All of the voting members are here tonight. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes, August 28th, 2023. Are there any emendations, corrections, additions?
Motion
Seeing-
to accept.
Thank you very much. Rick Meinking has made a motion to accept. Do I hear a second? Second from Roger Beely. Eric, please call the vote.
Rachel Hendrickson,
Yes.
Roger Beely,
Yes.
Jennifer Ladd,
Yes.
Rick Meinking,
Yes.
James Hebert.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 5.01 on the agenda has been tabled at the request of the applicant. We'll begin tonight with a public hearing. Item 4.01. The planning board will conduct a public hearing for a rezoning request of 9.4 acres from the Higas Parkway zoning district to the Crossroads Plan Development zoning district. The property is further identified as Assessors Map R 52 Lot 4. Before we begin with the public hearing, let me just simply remind folks that the planning board does not vote on this, on the changes. We provide an advisory opinion, and that is all. Now, if you're going to come up and make a statement, please give your name and your address. You have 3 minutes. There are lights on at the podium that will tell you when you're getting near the end of your allotted time. For the town, please.
Thank you. The first public hearing before you is approximately 9.4 acres for consideration from the Crossroads Plan Development to Higas Parkway. This property is located on Higas Parkway, just east of the Gateway Apartments. This rezoning request is town initiated. It is part of the option process that was undertaken with the Downs owners for the school negotiation. So this was town council initiated. The adjacent zoning to this property north is Higas Parkway. It's our future Acura dealership and Crossroads Plan Development zoning in orange. To the south, you have the Crossroads Plan Development, the Higas District and Market Street. East is Crossroads Plan Development, which is a mixture of uses, residential, non-residential, and west, as I mentioned, the Beacon and Gateway Apartments is zoned Higas Parkway. The comprehensive plan identifies this location as a regional activity center. The regional activity center is a large encompassing area that is intended to be a mixture of uses to create a town center experience for the town of Scarborough. Public notification is required for all zoning changes, whether they be applicant initiated or town initiated. The publication of this zoning change was included in the Portland Press Herald on September 7th and again on September 12th. And we did mail a butter notification to 11 property owners on September 7th. So the staff recommendation is required as part of the planning zoning map amendment process. So the planning director, myself, or designee review all requests, and then we make a recommendation to you all, the planning board and town council in regards to the comprehensive plan. The proposed rezoning is in compliance with the comprehensive plan. The proposal to CPD is in alignment with the regional activity center. Staff recommends approval of this requested zoning change. The planning board action is laid out in the zoning map requirements. Asks that the planning board review all requests for amendments or changes and make its recommendations to the town council regarding the land use implications of the request. And if a substantial change or alteration is contemplated by the town council, approval by the town council should not be granted without submitting the proposed changes to the planning board for comment. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. This is an item that is available for public comment. If there's any member of the public in the room first who would like to make a comment, please approach the podium.
Could I get a point of reference, Madam Chair?
Certainly.
Are you going to vote on these items separately to recommend back to the town council?
We do not vote, but we do make a recommendation.
Separate?
We will do them separately. Yes. Is there anyone? Yes, please approach the podium.
Thank you. My name is Don Hamel. I'm at 3 Bay Street in Scarborough, and I'm also a member of the town council, but I'm here, privately this evening to ask a question of, I know that the director of planning asked if we could ask questions. So first, I'd like to ask, what was the rationale for the request, this is the one from the Downs that wants to have it be included in the Crossroads Planning District. So I saw the points there in terms of your initial reaction, but what was the basis for their request? Or did this come from another source?
Yes, please.
It's in the packet, Counselor Hamel, is actually the excerpt from the option period that the council approved on September 6th that outlines the 2 zoning changes, and this is one of those. I was not privy to any of those specific meetings. I was just received the information that said that this one and the other zoning change were part of the option period negotiation and to process.
Okay, so the request actually came from the council in terms of directing you to approve these.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Directing us to conduct a public hearing,
and to offer comments.
to
back
offer
the-
comments.
Okay. So a follow-up question that I have to that is, do we have any concerns in terms of any sort of precedence setting that this may create? In other words, if a request comes along of this sort, say it's some other TIF district, and they just say, hey, we'd really like to have our TIF district extended, and, also probably like to have the CEA that goes along with that. Could that developer make a similar request to the council and have the council direct you to offer advice in terms of how you should act?
Certainly, I take my job duties from the town manager who is acting out the town council's request. So I'm certainly not saying that would never happen again. It's not something, I'm not usually part of those conversations.
So my final question then is, you're recommending approval.
Based on the comprehensive plan alignment. So the zoning map changes have the planning director or designee do an analysis based on the proposed zoning district and the comprehensive plan analysis. And the comprehensive plan is the regional activity center, and the proposed zoning is part of the regional activity center, and it's an appropriate zoning request based on that.
Okay. And then I just had one final question, and that is, I think most of the questions that I've heard from the public, expressed great dismay and concern, and the so-called meetings that were held with the council,
Don, please speak only for yourself at this point rather than anecdotally.
as a citizen looking at this objectively and trying to step back away from it, there are many questions, particularly as they relate to any precedent setting this might have in terms of whatever the planning board's advice is going to be. So I would ask you to think very carefully about that, despite what the comprehensive plan may say about what we should do. I would ask you to think very, very carefully about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can comment on both items. Is that correct, Madam Chair?
Yes, I hope you don't get terribly repetitious, but you may
Oh, I
certainly.
won't. This will be brief because it caught me off guard. I do have my own little timer, if you allow me to start it. Thank you very much.
Go ahead.
My name's Ken Johnson. I live on 3 Juneberry Lane. 04074-555-1212 if you want to contact me. I'm here tonight really to speak on the other item, but some of the because of the commonality here, I made some notes to follow so I would not derail too much. So I'm going to I'll bring it down to this. Part of the planning board charge is when there are amendments to a land use regulation are proposed to the town council, not by. The town planning board reviews amendments, conducts public hearing as we're doing now, makes recommendations to the town council regarding the regulations. So you'll go back, my understanding, I used to be a counselor, that you'll go back with ought to pass or ought not to pass. I don't, in this item nor the next item, see any land use reason to change zoning. I see this as part of a financial transaction that is mandated now by the town council. And I don't see any evidence in the packet from the developer for the reasons to ask for these zoning changes. So I'm just going to have to conclude that the town council is now acting as an agent of a development corporation. That's the only way I can take it. Now, most of my information here is pertinent to the next item, but I'm seeing several new members on the board. Hi, guys. Just a couple things. I won't try not to iterate too much on the next item. We've got a minute 8 left. A couple years ago, myself and I recognize several people that are present tonight on the planning board. We had a workshop with our town attorney. And it was about the best practices when you sit on a quasi judicial board or you're dealing with that type of matters. And it was a very interesting meeting, if you remember. There were even some gotcha and oh-ha moments from a few people because Phil runs a pretty good meeting. A couple of things that really strike home to me that follow both these items is the main item that came out of that item, out of that meeting with Phil was there's the duty of the council when an applicant brings forward a land use thing is to review that application within the constraints or framework of the existing ordinances. And if you can find a pathway to move forward to help the applicant, so be it. That's your purview. But what you're not to do is be creatively solutioning for an applicant, regardless who the applicant is. And because there is no supporting evidence of the need for a land zone change other than a financial transaction done by the town council, not the town manager, the town council, I don't really think that this should move forward. I'm sorry, I'll wrap it up. What I would strongly recommend, the town council has the ultimate authority to do this, regardless of your recommendation. I would really ask you to think about maybe passing an ought not to pass to the town council. That doesn't mean they won't do it. But what that will do is push the responsibility and accountability of this action directly where it belongs, on the town council and not the planning board. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room? Do we have anyone online? Thank you. In that case, I declare the public hearing closed and turn this over to the board for its comments. Who wants to jump into the deep end first? Roger?
I understand some of the comments that have been made already, and I'm not sure they're the purview of this particular board. And I just want to make one point that this board in the past, at least I'm familiar with, they have made zoning changes. The most recent one that I can recall was right up here at the old safety building. And then before that, I think there was one down at Dunstan Corner. That was a few years ago. So it's not something that it never gets done. This is not we've done this before to try and create some consistency in the zoning. Now, from my point of view, if you remove the other discussion that's going on, and I think that's really at the level of the town council, not here. On this particular property, I can see where the landowner, which I assume is the Downs, they would like to see some consistency on this particular item, this parcel. And if I'm not mistaken, isn't the abutting property the Acura dealership?
Yes.
Okay, so I can just strictly on the request for the zoning change and bringing it into some consistency, I can see the rationale for that. And the rest of the discussion, whether it's part of some arrangement, financial arrangement, that's not for us to determine at this level, as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you. Rick?
Yeah, from my perspective, this 9-acre changeover from HPZ to CBD seems like it aligns well with the crossroads. I mean, it's just, I never really understood how that little parcel could be in the Haggis Parkway zone. So from my standpoint, it does provide the CBD ordinance and requirements for, you know, this whole parcel now. So there is some consistency there. I do have a question, and my question is, how does this increase in land and then future development within the CBD, if this was to happen, what does that do to the traffic movement plan? And how will that affect all the offsite mitigation work and all of that? So I guess I don't know.
So the traffic movement permit only has a certain amount of trips. So once they exceed that, they'll have to go back.
So they could go back and get an additional,
Right, it's the same as with stormwater. So once they get to that point where they exceed what they've already have agreed upon, they'll have to go back if necessary.
assuming that they're going to do a development in there. Okay, all right, that answers my question. Thank you. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Yeah, and I believe, and Autumn can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the TMP took in what is the Haggis Parkway parcel as well, in terms of the numbers. So it's actually, there's no significant change because of any change in zoning or no change in zoning in terms of the TMP. Jen?
Other than this CPD district allows more intense development of certain types. So if you had
So you have the potential of increase.
the impact to the TMP would be relative to what development happens on there, less so with the zone.
Right.
Am I right about that? Yeah. Okay. I have a couple of questions. Just for clarity, so the memo submitted in our packet to Autumn from the town manager that outlines this, sheet 3 of that. What is that from? That's from the option agreement. Okay. So the comment in the paragraph under zoning adjustments that is referring to a change in buffer distances, is that a request? That's another initiation that is going to work on council Wednesday. Zoning maps, and it's unfortunate, zoning map amendments come to you all first, and they go to town council, text amendments still go to town council. So that text amendment to reduce the buffer with, I guess, residential and municipal properties will come back to you. Okay. Okay, so they're somewhat separate, even. They run separate. Okay. And there's a stream that's the dividing line between, am I correct in that? The westerly limit of the parcel in question. I believe. Okay, I'm just curious about, maybe I'll wait for the next round, but I'm curious how that request for a change in the buffer distance relates to any buffering that we might also be considering to the stream. If it is a stream. I know it's not called out on the right, so it's actually the text amendment. Well, I don't want to talk about the text amendment has to do with residential zoning, so it'd be relevant. Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you. I just wasn't super clear about that. I believe that's all that I have on this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Down this end, Ben.
I'll say that, I agree with Autumn's opinion that it does seem like it meets the, it's similar to the long-term plan for that area. But it does concern me that, just as a citizen as well, that there is sort of a financial transaction that's not related to it's related to the school sort of, but it's that a developer having leverage over the town in order to get zoning things changed. It's just not, doesn't sit right with me. That said, that's maybe not our role, as Rick was saying, as Roger was saying. But you know, in terms of on paper, I think that it seems like it makes sense to do. I just don't like the idea behind it. That's all, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Noah.
Thanks. Autumn, one quick question before I can comment. Can you tell us about the abutting property with the Scarborough Sanitary District? What that property is?
The pump station,
That's what it is. It's a pump station?
is that what the property that you're talking about?
That's what I'm asking you. I don't
I
know
don't
what
know
it
what-
is.
Abutting on. which
They're
one?
on the abutters list.
Oh,
Scarborough
the
Sanitary District
pump
is
station.
on the abutters list.
It's
So
right,
I'm
it's right
asking-
across from Hikers, it's right across Hikers Parkway at the gateway about, yeah.
Sorry.
It's
I
pump
was
station.
Looking at the map for the physical abutter, but the abutter is 500 feet, so it's the pump station.
It's the
in
pump station.
Scarborough Downs.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. So my concerns about this, and I'm going to talk more about this with the next parcel because it's a different scale and a geographic location, is the failure of the Downs to come up with a true plan and about protecting natural resources in green spaces. On the website, they say we're going to have 200 acres of green space, yet I see no evidence of plan of consistency and interaction. And this is a parcel that is described in the first sentence as having unique water features. This is a parcel that is incredibly close to the Scarborough Marsh and is just uphill from it, passes down there with a water feature that feeds directly into the marsh. And these are things that we're stewards of as the planning board. Yes, we can't comment on financial transactions, but we can comment on protection of our natural resources and what we want that to be like in the future. And it really makes me uncomfortable to not have a concrete plan. We want to rezone this parcel, but how are we going to rezone that and protect our natural resources in this 600-acre parcel that the Downs has purchased and largely developed, is developing. It's private property, I get it, but it's gone from a 600 largely undeveloped parcel. Admittedly, there was a water quality issue with respect to the horses that I'm aware of. That's been mitigated, but most of it was undeveloped and preserving our natural resources there that impacted. And I think we need to keep that in mind as we're considering these types of changes.
Thank you. Jim?
I'd like to mimic my colleague Noah's comments about this. The environmental impact of all of the development that we're doing in town is a real concern for me as well. However, I don't disagree with I'm not going to disagree with the statements from staff about how this aligns with our comprehensive plan and the plans for this area going forward. I think that's the responsibility of, that environmental piece. I think that lies on us as they come through here to make sure that we're making sure that they stay good stewards. And I think that's the planning board's responsibility. Regarding to politics behind this, I leave that to the town council. Those are my comments.
Thank you. I guess, a few things. First of all, just about everything that would be allowed in the CPD district if it were rezoned to CPD is also allowable in the HP district. And changing it from HP to CPD does nothing to change our obligations on review of land use, review of water quality, review of buffering when somebody comes before us. So to that extent, there's very, very little difference. The major difference that's listed is that the Hikers Parkway district, the HP, I believe, has 4 units allowed per acre and the maximum density of the CPD is 20 units per acre. I will point out that as far as I know, and thinking back to the original subdivision and to the subdivision that we passed, basically all of the buildable land, I believe, has already been subdivided and approved for development. Whether it's, and it makes very little difference except for some architectural styles between the HP and the CPD. So, and that is for this particular piece of property. There may be a small amount of uplands left. I just am not sure. But in any case, whether it's HP or CPD, our responsibility as a planning board doesn't change. I will say, because Roger reminded me that when the town was in negotiations to sell the fire department, police station area, that came at the request both of the town and a developer. And there was a CEA attached and there was a TIF attached. So it's not that this is different. We have seen this before. And the town has, I guess the town council really has the obligation to conduct all of the negotiations. We don't, but this is not sui generis. We have seen this before in the town. At other times, we have seen primarily, as I recall, when we've dealt with zoning changes, in most cases, it comes from the applicant. But I can think of another case where with the town, there was an attempt to essentially even out a zone because there had been some changes along Route 1. It was raggedy, and there was an attempt to even out all of the zoning along Route 1 near Oak Hill. So we've done this before. It's come to us from the town. It's come to us from a developer. It's come to us when the town has had an interest in selling property. It's come to us now when the town has an interest, I guess, in buying property. This particular application for Higas Parkway, for whatever reason, it's at the request of the town that we consider it. And in our consideration, we need to determine that there is no real significant change or impact from changing this from Higas Parkway to the CPD district. I've looked at the maps. I will have a few comments to say when we get to a change in buffer. But at this point, I see no reason to object to this. It fits in with what our obligation is and what the ordinances are. So I think, Eric, do you have enough to write a recommendation? Let me ask, although there are reservations, does anybody want to actually come up with an objection to this?
I'd like to object to your characterization of no change, in that when you notably increase the housing density, as you've described accurately with the permit, that notably increases the amount of impervious surfaces. And impervious surfaces are a dramatic impact. Increasing impervious surfaces are a dramatic impact on our water resources, particularly on the edge of the marsh. So I just want to make sure that that's.
Please, yes, please make sure that that is in, that the objections are in there.
Noted, Madam Chair. No, thank you.
All right, in that case, I declare this hearing closed. Next item on the agenda, I think Next item on the agenda, item 4.02, the planning board will conduct a public hearing for a rezoning request of 35.8 acres from the Village Residential 4 zoning districts to the Crossroads Planning Development zoning district. The property is further identified as Assessors Map R53, Lot 4. For the
Thank you, Madam
town.
Chair. This particular zoning request again comes at the request of town council as part of the option agreement with the negotiations for the school site. This is the property in question. It is currently zoned Village Residential 4, which allows residential uses in a village setting with up to 4 units per acre. The request is for CPD zoning, which allows up to 20 units per acre. This is the adjacent zoning. To the north is the CPD Innovation District. It's actually IDEX property. Then we have to the south, we have Village Residential 2, the single family homes and cottages at Sawyer. To the east is rural farming. It's the Scarborough Land Trust Warren Woods. And then west is the Crossroads Plan Development, which again is a mixture of proposed residential and non-residential uses. This property is also in the Regional Activity Center designation for the comprehensive plan. And again, this site is in alignment. This zoning to the Crossroads Plan Development from Village Residential 4 is in line with the comprehensive plan designation. The public notification was put in the Portland Press Herald on September 7th and September 12th, and the abutter notification was mailed to 23 adjacent property owners on September 7th, 2023. And again, staff recommendations are based on the comprehensive plan designation, and this proposed rezoning from Village Residential 4 to Crossroads Plan District is in alignment with the comprehensive plan, being it is in the Regional Activity Center. And staff does recommend approval of the requested zoning change based on that. Again, the planning board has the same requirements as the previous item, that you review all requests for amendments or changes and make your recommendations to the town council regarding the land use implications of the request. I am happy to answer any questions that you have about this particular item.
Thank you. This is an item that is available for public comment. The rules are similar to what we had before. When you approach the podium, please give your name and address. You have 3 minutes.
Madam
Off you
Chair, I'd
go.
like to correct the record before I start my timer. May I do that?
Certainly.
Mr. Beasley stated.
It's Mr. Beely.
Mr. Beasley stated that we, meaning the planning board, change zones all the time. That's incorrect. The town council codifies changes of the zoning, not the planning board. My timer is gone. Thank you. My name's Ken Johnson. I'm at 3 Juneberry. I'm here tonight to talk about the second item, bullets F and G. There's a whole lot of politics involved in F and G, and similar to what one of the panel said, I'm not here about the politics. I'll leave that to the town council. Okay. I won't reread my planning board charge, nor or what I thought was a great meeting with Phil, but maybe not everybody heard it. So I'm here to voice my concern on the land use aspect of this request, which actually falls to the other request too. When I was a member of the town council in 2019, 2022, on many occasions, we would send down the planning board applications or requests for changing zoning. We valued your opinion. You guys, this is your wheelhouse. You guys know the stuff in and out. Council's way too busy to be drilling into all these things to find the nuances. But this request is a little out of the norm since the landowner is the Downs, and the Downs again has supplied no evidence stating why this needs to be changed as part of a financial transaction. That's not political. It's just you guys deal with land, you know. And I'm gonna quote a couple things that actually one of the members did, because I was involved with them, and I was notorious for voting down zoning changes, just to be clear. However, always respected the opinion, whether my opinion was different. Because a couple things that one of your members did, I was involved with the firehouse. We voted that zoning change through recommendations that came through the planning board. But there was a reason for that. There was a single lot that had 2 zones in it. 90% of it was TVC, 10% of it on the northeast corner was residential, and that was a leftover from a prior rezoning. So it was kind of a sloppy thing that we wanted to clean up, and therefore the developer for the firehouse development, which I think is a great development, could move forward. I embraced that and voted all day long I would do that, because there was a compelling reason to change zoning. I get to hear one on this, or see one. And I hope you guys got this packet a lot sooner than I did, because I got it Saturday. Okay. Another item was the Maine National Guard down off the border of Saco and Scarborough. Wasn't zoned correctly. It needed a few adjustments in there. Who wouldn't welcome the National Guard facility in their town? Recommendation out of the board was to change it. I fully supported it. And again, your opinion is always valued. So the town council listens to you. And that's why when I suggested the last one, they, and only they, can approve this stuff. You could still send back an ought not pass, and they'll still pass it. But at least you're on the record of dealing with something I am. Oh, my 3 minutes is up. So I'll wrap up. And I really mean this, regardless of your opinion or your ruling on it, I fully respect it and will accept it. And thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Evening, my name's Jack Fay. I live at 14 Mulberry Lane. I'm neighbors with him. Thank you for posting the information on the town's website. I have no experience with the government. I've never been on a council or anything else, but I'm starting to learn how the government works because of your website and the hard work that people have put in. And I got to read a lot of stuff over the weekend. And maybe I'm not posing this right, but I took a look at the proposed changes to VR2 and VR4 districts, and I really get concerned. What caught my attention was that the village development standards were adopted on July 19th of this year. What's happened in the last 2 months that we have to make changes to it? I mean, that's what it says right on the top of the page. And I said, okay, that.
Madam Chair, can I correct that one?
Certainly.
I'm sorry, sir. I just wanted like the village residential standards, the only thing that were changed had to do with compliance with LD 2003. And so there was actually a combination of VR2 and VR4 in one format. So there were no substantial changes made to it.
No, but I mean, we're making a change. We're talking about making a change tonight.
We're making a request for a zoning
Right.
map change.
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to make sure the date didn't
Okay.
mistake you on
I was
anything.
just reading the date off your page. The thing that I noticed about it was that specifically number 3 in the standards says that a street network shall not provide or create vehicular access from Sawyer Road to service non-residential development located outside of the VR district. I don't know why Sawyer Road was spelled out. There must have been a reason. Somebody must have figured out that Sawyer Road needs to be protected as a natural resource or a country road or whatever it happens to be. And I just don't understand what changed in the last 2 months about Sawyer Road. And then looking at the proposed change to CPD, the section concerning street networks in their proposal says the connections must be from Route 1 to Payne Road and to Hagus Parkway. And they want to look for consideration to connect to Gorham Road and Enterprise Drive. These connections should avoid creating direct travel routes that will establish shortcuts through the district. They want to allow travel within the development without using collector roads. If they use Sawyer Road, that's going to become a collector road. So it seems to me in their proposal that what they're proposing is self-contradictory. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever on a small road like that with 223 homes that have no access outside of their houses unless they use Sawyer Road to get to Gorham Road or Route 1. And it just seems like we're going to be putting an awful lot of things over here and doing it. It seems to me that it directly replaces the restriction from using Sawyer Road as originally put in the standards of the VR. And it seems like it's going to be a collector street. I don't think the planning board should recommend these changes. I know you don't make the actual changes. The town council does. I'm learning that from listening. But as somebody said, don't bring it forward or something like that. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Is there anyone online? All right, in that case, public hearing is closed. I turn this over to the board. Who would like to go first? Roger?
Yeah, I'll have to be very careful what I say this time. I basically approached this the same way I did the other one. What I've heard basically belongs at the town council level. We're here just to look at a zoning change. And when the developer comes, if the zoning change goes through, when the developer comes before this board, we will go through it and analyze it. And if there's stormwater problems, we will address those as we have with everything else. Just a side comment. Since I've been on this board, I mean, I have been amazed at the level of stormwater management that this town does. And I've looked out at developers, especially owners of property, and I'm astonished sometimes with the expressions on their face when they see what we're demanding they do to address any potential stormwater problems. So I feel very confident that this board will look at this property and make sure that it's abiding by all the requirements that this town requires it to do. So I just go back to my original comment I made on the previous request, that this just adds consistency to this, to the crossroads. The only other thing I would mention about this, I remember when the cottages at Sawyer Road were before the planning board. It was my impression that most of this property was wetlands, and there was going to be an attempt on the part of the developer of the cottages at Sawyer to maybe get the Scarborough Land Trust to purchase it, or take it over or something like that. Now, apparently that did not happen. So I don't know what happened in the meantime here. So obviously the Crossroads owns this property right now. What they can do on it is, I have no idea. So I know it's adjacent to the Innovation District, and it's as well as the rest of the Crossroads. So just from a purely rezoning purpose, I don't see any reason to not approve, not to advise this to go forward, just to create some consistency in the whole Crossroads development. Thank you.
Thank you. Jen?
In the, let me make sure I have the document right. In the memo that we received for both of these zone changes, it stated that we are looking at these zone changes related to the purchase of land for a new unified primary school. But it is not clear to me, based on that or anything else that's been submitted, whether or not does this zone itself pertain to the school property?
This is not the school.
This is
site.
not the school. Okay. Is it adjacent to the school? Can I ask you?
Northeast.
Okay. I have some concerns about uses that are permitted in the CPD zone being adjacent to a school specifically. And my question is about whether or not
there at a time in the future, we don't see a lot of school construction projects here. Is there some sort of overlaying buffer zone or offset to particular uses regardless of the zone?
In the CPD district as it exists today, there is a 100-foot buffer requirement. In the text amendments that are proposed,
Buffer requirement 100 foot to what?
between all uses at the adjacent on the edge of the zone.
Okay,
And so the proposal is for the text amendment, it's not before you this evening, is to reduce it to a 15-foot buffer between residential and municipal uses. All other uses would remain the 100 feet adjacent to the zone, but there's nothing in there that I believe the school doesn't have any additional buffering requirements. Because the school side is in CPD already.
okay. Okay, I think I will have more questions later on that, but yeah, I think if that zone, I think if the parcel in question for that already lies within the CPD question, okay, zone, sorry. Actually, I had similar questions that were raised by the gentleman previously about connections. Does a zone designation specify or prohibit any connectivity between zones? Or is that handled at a subdivision or later phase? There wasn't anything in.
So I don't believe that there is anything that would prohibit as part of it spoken about. But I don't believe that would come up with that.
So a zone, okay, so a zone, so regardless of what zone is on which side of a line, we're not prohibiting any type of connectivity here by doing that.
If you make a recommendation to put this property into CPD, everything that is in the part of the CPD, the time standards and all those things.
Apply.
We're not changing anything within the CPD time standards. It would be the same as all of the other CPD.
Okay, my question is about connectivity between CPD and the adjacent VR4 zone. Right now that's happening in one location, but with a proposed zone change, it would be happening potentially in a different location. But I think what you're saying is that would come before us at
Correct.
later date. Zoning doesn't cover that.
As you can see, there are dead ends, cottage Sawyer's dead end into this proposal. So there is opportunity for that connection for.
Okay. Thank you. And okay, it's hard to wait. I'll have more questions later on buffering as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Rick.
Yeah, I guess my struggle with this particular one is there is a significant density change between if it goes to the CBD, 20 units per acre versus 4 units per acre. That's a significant change in density. And that's concerning in that there's already a lot of density in that area. And so that's where I'm troubled with this particular request. It just, and timing, I mean, is there not a master plan for the Downs that can actually be followed and built out according to a master plan and not have these periodic Well, amendments, I mean, we're on 10, 11, 12 amendments to different site plans. It just, it starts to get to be a jigsaw puzzle. I understand there's some advantages of including it into one zone. But I'm having a real trouble with the density that this change would do on a big development that it's been in planning for years, and now all of a sudden we want to change that. So that's my struggle. And I'm gonna weigh that in my head while I listen to my other colleagues.
Thank you. Jim?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Similarly to you, Rick, I have also concerns looking at 4 dwelling units per acre to the maximum density of the CPD. We're giving 20 units per acre. Now granted, I see it was discussed earlier, the performance measures requiring 100-foot buffers between non-residential and residential uses, which I think is good. Personally, for me, I would, I'm not opposed to the zoning change. I would much rather see a more focus on business use and commercial rather than seeing more densely populated residential sort of jammed in there. I think we've seen enough of that personally with in the Downs already, but that's my only opinion that I have on this particular one. Going from four dwelling units per acre to 20 units per acre is a concern for me. I would like to see more of a focus on what the benefits and what they're going to be using here to incorporate more of the pedestrian bicycle transit patterns in this area. Again, we still haven't really seen a giant. We've only seen parts and pieces of how a lot of these things come together. And if this area were to go in, I'd like to see how all that would be connected and what they would do. Or is the thought just to put more residential in, which really isn't not what my desire would be. But again, this is not my property. It's private property. They can do what they want, and they're coming to us asking for something. So again, my concern is with just the density in there. That's all I have for now. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ben?
I don't have a whole lot to add. I would like to say that I generally agree with Roger's comments and James's, but I don't have anything further to add.
Thank you. Noah?
So this parcel proposed for zoning change shares significant border with Warren Woods. And when I first saw this proposal, I felt like I needed to re-educate myself about the value of Warren Woods. And I've spent some time there and enjoyed it, but I also then went and did some work aerially looking down on it and for the most updated maps. And then I went to actually the Land Trust and asked them, can you just describe Warren Woods to me? And this has been helpful. And I'd like to just read a few of the words here just as kind of context. So Warren Woods is a jewel to the people and visitors to the town of Scarborough, is a haven for plant and wildlife species in a changing environment. The area has a tremendous quantity of wetlands, including floodplain, needed to distribute and hold floodwaters and to release water into the rivers and streams during dry and drought times. It's a place for people to experience parts of Maine that are disappearing. Finally, it's a place for people to enjoy and escape the pressures of the world. So that's really moving to me in that, and we have to think about the buffer that we create around it, okay? And the proposed changes would have a notable impact on this incredible parcel, without question. And this goes from impervious surfaces, but it also goes to light pollution, sound pollution. There's so much impact, pet pollution, lots of things that impact these parcels. And in order to have any support for this in any way, I need the Downs to be proactive and say, this is how we're going to conserve this natural resource. This is how we're going to do both. We're going to increase the density and really safeguard this amazing jewel. And this proposal to me is not that way. It's saying, oh yeah, just leave it up to us. We'll find a way to have a little conservation here, a little conservation there, maybe a bike path, maybe not. And to me, it's the backwards. We're working backwards with the downs. It needs to be, let's start with what's going to be green and protecting our natural resources, the most sensitive, important places, and then let's work from there. And so I really encourage you folks who are voting on this, that we can't support development going backwards. We need to support development going forwards, where we protect our natural resources and then have that conversation about development. That's, the last, since we've really gotten these documents, I've spent a huge amount of time thinking about this. And it's really concerning to me. I hope you all think about those aspects.
Thank you, Noah. I see this package and this request as distinctly different from the first one that we looked at. The first one that we looked at essentially was meant to be commercial. Was meant, if there were apartments there, they were meant to be there along Higas Parkway. The area was already subdivided and construction has started. And it was essentially in a district that was very similar to what the proposed changes were going to be. This one, I've got real problems with the change from four houses or units per acre to, what is it, 20. To me, this should have come to us first. And I understand it comes from the town. But to me, this should have come to us first from the Downs as a request for an amendment to the master plan. Because this is not in the master plan. So we don't know what's going to happen. Now, it backs up to a residential area, it backs up to a commercial area, an industrial area. So it has some elements in terms of its abutters that are both industrial and residential. Is this going to be an extension of the industrial area? Or is it going to be an extension of the residential area as it appears in the Downs master plan and in the density of the Downs? So a lot of things in terms of connectivity are settled and hashed over during the master plan process. As I looked at this, Immersion Drive, which is right next to IDEX, actually is part of the IDEX access, actually has a trailhead there. But we don't know exactly where that's going to end up, but it has a trailhead there with parking that can come into this area. We don't know. To me, to change this zoning is kind of like a pig in a poke. I can argue both ways. It connects clearly, abuts the Downs. It abuts the residential area and it abuts the industrial area. But absent knowing what is intended here, this isn't something I can support. Again, this is not something that essentially we vote on. What the town council receives is the text of our comments and our considerations, and then it's up to them. My sense is, correct me if I'm wrong, that there are a lot of reservations about this process of this property. Concerns about a lack of information, concerns about a lack of what would happen to it, concerns about its connection to Warren Woods, concerns about its connection to residential, concerns about its access, and absence some comfort there. I simply go back to taking a look at the zoning comparison and saying, I'm not sure that this is an area that should go from 4 houses or 4 units per acre to 20. Roger?
I tend to agree with you on the process. I had a problem when we first received this because I mean, in most cases, when there is a proposal for a zone change, there's somebody advocating for that, and it's mostly a developer advocating for a zone change. And we can make a determination based on what that developer is planning to do. In this case, in lieu of a developer, this is the town council who is requesting this. That's the problem we have. I mean, this could be residential, or it could be an extension of Innovation Drive. Or Innovation District, I should say. So it does present us with a problem. But the way I see it, this is a request coming from the majority vote of the town council. And until we see something that's, an absolute as to what's going to be developed there, I tend to, I don't see a real problem. I mean, you can conjure up with all these things that you think are going to happen, but you don't really know. So I can't see why. I mean, I'm going to support this because it's coming from the town council. It's the majority vote of the town council. And unless I saw something saying different that was going to be developed there, I don't see any reason to not support this at this stage. And I feel very confident, no matter what goes in there, that it will be thoroughly vetted by this board. I'm absolutely convinced of that. So I'm not worried about, I mean, I'll satisfy some of my colleagues, but I feel very confident about that. Thank you.
Roger, I also feel confident whatever comes before us in terms of the development of this, whether it remains within the village district or it becomes part of the CPD. I'm convinced that we will do our due diligence and scrutinize what's there and ensure that all of the ordinances are met, ensure that there is protection of the natural resources, and ensure that whatever comes there is something that's important quality to the town of Scarborough. Go ahead.
This might be a good example of maybe a change in this process going forward, where we at least have some more concrete information available to us as we deliberate.
As Mr. Johnson talked about the the fire station development, I recall more about what happened now. And we had a good idea what was going to happen there. We understood it was being changed because Avesta wanted to come in, because there was going to be housing that couldn't exist under the current ordinances or under the current zoning and needed to be changed. This, I go back to, I just, you get that queasy feeling because you're not sure what's going to happen here. And I think this is something I could support if I see what it is, because it is so attached to the CPD. But absent that, given its location so close to residential and frankly a lot of wetlands, and I understand the town council's making the request and they're going to do what they're going to do. But it's my opinion that this change should not happen.
I'm not ready to see a change at this time,
Thank you.
based on what I know.
I'm not taking, we're not taking a vote, but if anybody wants to chime in, Anybody else wants to chime in, please feel free.
Madam Chair, I guess for mine is, I'd feel more comfortable if there was a thought of what is going to go in here due to its proximity to residential. With the other applications you pointed out, it's clearly we know what's going to go in there, just based on everybody else that's around and those surrounding parcels and lots. But here, it's much more sensitive. We can't just carte blanche give that away. So I would want to see something about what's going to go in there, but I know that also costs time and money.
Thank you. Ben?
I would echo James's comments again. I agree that it's not ideal that we don't have any idea what might be planned there. But I also still feel like I agree with Roger that it seems like it's something that, you know, if I was voting on this, I would support at this time, just because I don't see that we have enough of a oversight role, I suppose, to say no, because of what it matches. We haven't seen what's going on there yet, and we certainly will vet anything, parking lots or whatever else is going on there in terms of stormwater and all that, and impacts to how it impacts Warren Woods and wherever else. But at this time, I don't think the zoning change is going to be stopped or whatever anyway. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Noah?
I think I spoke my feelings pretty clearly. I feel.
All right,
good
thank
about
you.
what's on record. Thank you.
All right, Eric, do you think you have enough to
Yes,
write a report on the public hearing?
I do, Madam Chair. Thank you.
All right, thank you. In that case, I declare the hearing closed. Next item on the agenda. Item 5.02, Keeper Scarborough LLC request a site plan review of a parking expansion at Maine Veterinary Medical Center. The parking expansion would include 70 parking spaces south of the existing veterinary practice, as well as walkways, lighting, and landscaping. The property further identified as 1100 and 900 Technology Way, Assessors Map U39, lots 4731 and 4732. For the town, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Keeper Scarborough is in front of the board with a site plan for a 70 space parking lot south of the existing main vet location along Technology Drive. It would connect to the existing previously expanded parking lot that main vet has, and include some landscaping, walkways, et cetera. Staff's main concerns really are only making sure that the appropriate landscape buffer along Technology Way is in place. And then also the board discussing the entrances with the applicant. With that, we have provided a draft motion for the board's consideration. And I would turn it back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And for the applicant.
Good evening. My name is Aaron Hunter. I'm a civil engineer with Sebago Technics, here tonight presenting on behalf of the applicant Keeper Scarborough LLC. Also joining online, we have Tim Norden from Rare Breed Veterinary Partners, who's the tenant. So we were last here before you for sketch plan review in August, and here tonight seeking final approval for the 70 space parking expansion at the main veterinary medical center that Eric described. So we're located in the Enterprise Business Park. It received approvals from the town in 2003 and also from DEP. Last site plan for the facility involved lots 30 and 31. So 30 is the existing medical facility and 31 is the one to the left if you're looking on the plan. That was for the overflow parking and also added a drop-off pickup area at the front of the building. So since then, they've experienced some ongoing parking issues. They've had anywhere from 25 to 30 vehicles parking within the parking area located behind the medical facility. They've had vehicles parking in the cul-de-sac. And they also have a lease agreement that's about to run up this fall, where they're currently parking about 20 staff on any given day. And that's at 700 Technology Way. So they're proposing this parking expansion on lot 31 and 32. And the intent of that is to alleviate the existing parking challenges and to provide additional space to better fit the site and create more functionality to access the building. So access to the parking area is proposed by connection to the existing overflow parking area here, and then also a proposed full access driveway here along Technology Way across from the Mint Salon Block property. We are requesting a waiver for this full access drive as there's only one that's allowed per the ordinance. Currently, there's one full access drive to the existing medical facility, and then there's a one-way entrance to the overflow parking that someone would come in, park, or they would come in and go through the pickup drop-off area out front and park here and drop someone off or pick someone up. And then they would go out and exit back through the full service existing entrance. We are adding some ADA parking spaces as we're proposing 70. So that would, based on ADA requirements, would require 3 ADA parking spaces, 2 regular standard spaces, and 1 van accessible. We are providing pedestrian connectivity from the proposed parking lot to the building with a sidewalk and striped crosswalk across the existing overflow parking lot. And then we're also providing access from the parking lot up to the sidewalk along Technology Way that continues in both directions, existing to the existing facility and to the rest of the park. We are providing landscaping, as you can see here, pretty robust amount of landscaping along the frontage here. There is a 15-foot, I guess to address Eric's comment or staff's comment about the landscaping along the frontage, the property line does start closer to the road, and so there is the area between the sidewalk and the property line that's grassed area that's primarily for drainage, for a swale that goes to down the road into the detention pond. So we are adding a 10-foot landscaped area between the sidewalk and the parking lot, showing some trees in there and some smaller plantings as well. Also providing some trees within the parking lot and along the rear and up against the existing parking lot. We do have a pretty good size existing tree area between the back of the parking lot and the adjacent Scarborough Downs Road. In regards to utilities, we're providing site light poles within the parking area and also one along this full service entrance drive here to provide lighting for that entrance. We did revise the photometric plan, which hasn't been provided yet, but to address the comment from the peer review engineer for illumination level, to get that within the requirements. We're also showing the EV ready and EV capable spaces, primarily being over in this existing overflow parking lot area, to provide those close to the building, just easy access for someone. In regard to stormwater, we are capturing that in catch basins in the parking lot area, and that will be discharged with a culvert to the existing drainage ditch along Technology Way. That flows down the road to the left here and makes its way to an existing stormwater pond that was approved as a part of the original permit from DEP. We are proposing to stay under what we know as the limit of impervious area. There has been an ask from the peer review engineer to provide some additional documentation to make sure that that is accurate. So would be able to work with the town and DEP to make sure that's all set. But we're pretty confident that we're within that, as the existing development went through some improvements and it fell within the impervious thresholds, and we're below what those thresholds were. So we're pretty confident about that. I guess to touch on a couple of the other staff comments. Lot coverage for this middle lot here, we are at 54.9%. So that's well below the 75%. I talked about the landscape area along the frontage. There was a comment about the existing drainage ditch and that it's doesn't have a whole lot of slope on it. Certainly, as they did in the previous plan, would plan to look at that existing culvert and, clean out any sediment in the area directly adjacent to our property that would be impeding any flow. I was out there during a rainstorm event, as we've had quite a bit this summer. And I didn't see any issues with the flow in there, so I don't think there's really anything to be done. It does flow. I think that's all for that. The only other comment was from the traffic reviewer. They did ask for some ADA compliant truncated warning panels at the proposed driveways. I guess at the proposed driveway, and then over here at Passageway. The only thing that I guess issue that I have with that is that there's no truncated warning panels throughout the whole subdivision that I'm aware of along the sidewalk. And then Passageway was recently improved by the Downs and they didn't put any in, so I guess I'm struggling to see the need for those and why the applicant would be required to do that. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. This item is available for public comment. There's seeing nobody in the room. I will go on to the online audience. Is there anyone online with a raised hand? All right, in that case, public comment is over. I turn this over to the board. I'm not going to go down the line or anything else, but raise your hands when you're ready. Ben?
It's my understanding that Maine Veterinary owns the lot 4729 and intends to possibly do future improvements there. They don't own 4728, is that correct?
Correct. That's my understanding. They own this lot over here in the corner, but I don't believe they own the one next to the Mint Block Salon, which is this property here.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. I guess part of the purpose of this whole parking lot is to reduce or eliminate, good luck, the parking in the cul-de-sac. Is there gonna be signs or something to stop you from parking in the cul-de-sac, or how is that going to be addressed? Because it seems like that's still closer to the vet center than some of these parking spots that are way down. I know we talked about this last time a little bit too, but I'm just wondering if there's any more of a plan that it's been addressed.
No, that's a fair question. Yeah, so we would be open to adding a sign or two to say, no parking in this area. And then it would just take some more frequent enforcement if a member of staff sees someone to alert someone, make an announcement. I'm not sure how they would do that, but that's kind of the only way to really enforce that.
Yep. The reason for my question about the other lot was, since we don't know what might end up going in there eventually, if anything ever does, but that it'd be important to make sure that the parking lot doesn't start getting used, but if the goal here is to keep people off the cul-de-sac, to make sure that the parking lot is signed enough, I suppose, or convenient enough to make sure everyone knows this is for the main vet center only, even though parts of it are closer to, say, Mint-Salon block or closer to the as of yet unknown property or unknown development. I think that, as I said last time, I work nearby here. I'm familiar with the need for the parking. I just think that, it's important to make sure that if this does pass, and I'm not voting on this, obviously, but that it is clear that it serves the need. And I think that, I agree that the parking lot or a parking lot is needed. I just hope that it gets used correctly. I'm just a little concerned about how far away it is, but I don't know what you can do about it other than.
Yeah, so I guess I think the intent probably would be to have a lot of the staff park over in this area to provide parking for customers closer to the building. So that would kind of help with parking there, but also, if there's a need for additional signage and everyone feels that way, we'd be happy to work with staff to figure out if there's some way to make it more clear.
Okay, yeah, I guess that's a good point about the staff parking primarily. Yeah. Okay, thanks. That's all have.
I'm going to interrupt here for a minute. I just asked Eric, the Enterprise Drive there is a public street, so only the police can put up no parking signs and enforce no parking signs on that cul-de-sac. So, but you can certainly work with the police department.
Okay, thank you.
That's all I have, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Anybody else want to jump in? Noah?
Sure. Hi, I have a number of questions for you. So first, I guess along that point, can you just confirm that parking is not allowed by town ordinance on the cul-de-sac? Is that accurate? Or is parking allowed permissible on the cul-de-sac?
It's not posted as no parking, up the street. What we have seen in the past is the planning board can limit, I've seen on site plans, you can limit business utilizing the parking for their required parking, but the public can park.
So maybe I'd just like to start by, why not start with that? Why not start with that coming to the town, asking to improve that cul-de-sac to make it more friendly to parking?
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess I would say that it depends on, I'm not sure how that cul-de-sac was designed, but I would imagine that could create some potential issues where it probably wasn't sized to accommodate cars parking and large emergency vehicles. That would be my initial concern.
I guess I'm confused because you're starting with the rationale by being that's the problem. That people are parking there is the problem. And maybe I'm just failing to see the problem. And that the solution for not having a problem is to add more more parking lots. I'm kind of missing some of this. If you, it can't be both ways where, yeah, people are using it, or, oh, no, we don't know if people are using it. Maybe they can't use it. I feel like we need a clear, just at least a conversation with you and your clients. Like, should we think about this and maybe have an alternative to put in this parking lot? Yeah.
We have a hand up, I believe, from one of our, John Hartz.
Yep, he's the representative from Keeper Bay.
Hi, John.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Whoa.
We certainly can.
Great, thank you. Yeah, quick introduction, John Hartz. I'm the Director of Operations for Keeper Bay, which is the parent entity for Keeper Scarborough LLC, landlord of MVMC, and then, you know, this future development. To answer, I guess, the question directly about the cul-de-sac. So it's worth noting that Rare Breed is currently renting space. I think it's the 700 Technology Way. And even with that, you know, there's still a lot of parking in the cul-de-sac. So even if that were expanded upon, it probably wouldn't provide, you know, the ample space. I think the original plan, and Aaron can speak more to this, had more than 70 additional spaces to be put in. And that was, you know, understanding that there's probably some room for growth, and, you know, you build your parking lot for the mall on Black Friday, right? And so, you know, I don't think we'd be able to squeeze 70 spaces around the cul-de-sac. And this seemed like the easiest way to, you know, make sure that there's a good experience for the clientele, allow the staff, you know, dedicated parking space to be able to arrive at the hospital. So that was the overall thought when we decided to move forward with the project, rather than approaching the town and asking for, you know, you're all in taxpayer dollars to go and to update the existing cul-de-sac.
Okay, thank you for the answer. I'll let the folks, everybody just, you can think about that as you will. So my second question, kind of following up, you mentioned that this project covers 54% of the space, buildable space. And can you clarify, does that include lot 4732?
So the 54% that I was talking about was just for 4731, which is this one right here. I can't really see where I think the property line's right here. So this one right here. So that was a question from town staff, if that was meeting the 75% allowed. So 4732 is actually, I believe, I think I have it on here, but I believe it's well under the 75% as well. It's probably closer to, let me see if I can zoom in here. It's 29.2%.
Okay. Thanks. I guess just visually, without seeing the GIS on it, I'm surprised to see that 4731 is only 54% impervious. It looks notably more than that, but if you've done the GIS work, then I'll take it from there. So then I wanted to ask you about the stormwater ditch. You've pretty clearly said that you don't need to, you know, you're just relying on what is existing. Can you tell us about how that ditch is maintained, the regularity of the maintenance of it, particularly, you know, as this will be adding significant discharge into it?
Yeah, so the existing ditch, there's, you know, it's a grass ditch. I can't speak to the frequency of maintenance. It's supposed to be maintained per the stormwater maintenance agreement, or if it's a public road, then it might be maintained by the town. I'm not sure. So yeah, I mean, in terms of maintenance, I was out there and it's grass. I don't see a whole lot of sediment buildup or anything in it. So it's just, you know, that's just unfortunately how it was constructed at the time back in the 2000s. And in order to get more pitch in it, it would probably take fixing a lot of the, you know, going all the way down to the pond potentially.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you. And so, you know, this is adding a lot of parking naturally for the business. And I appreciate that the business itself, in terms of the clients that are coming there, are going to be car dependent, right? They're bringing an animal there. I get that. And perhaps I missed this in the drawing. I did look for it as close as I could. I didn't see anything that sort of encouraged staff to have potentially alternative modes of transportation to get to their workplace. And so that could be as simple as bike racks. And are there bike racks and I missed them?
I'd have to let Tim or John speak to that. I'm not as familiar with the site over the existing site over here in terms of if there's bike racks. Yeah, so I'm not sure on that.
And in case I'm unmuted, I can't speak to it either. Tim might be the best to answer as he's more in the day-to-day with Rare
Yep.
Breed.
Hi, this is Tim Norton. I'm the Director of Facilities for Rare Breed. We do have a small bike rack behind the building, but unfortunately, most of our staff do not live close enough to actually use their bikes. So it kind of just sits there. I've seen one, maybe two bikes at the most when I've been there.
So I appreciate that comment, but I'd just like to say, we're in the process of building an incredibly dense housing around the corner from you, and you never know what your staff will look like in the future. And to say what it looks like, and you're implicitly here implying growth of your staff. So I guess I would really encourage you to think about having an amenity as an alternative to driving for your car. Thank you for your response. Next, your planting list is half composed of non-native species to North America. I would strongly encourage you to revisit that and return with plants that are native to North America, Eastern North America. That's it, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's just go up the line. Jim?
I got ones here. Thank you for referencing the note regarding the photometrics. And those are going to be addressed at the lower levels with the Haley Ward review comments. My colleague gave plenty of mention on the topics that also concern me as well with regard to sort of general clearing of this area and access to it. I do not have any further comments, Madam Chair.
Are you done?
Yes.
Okay. Roger?
Yes, I'm gonna defer to my colleague here because I think she's gonna answer my question. Or to answer my question. She has more knowledge about it than I do.
All right, deferring to Jen.
I'm gonna ask your question, Roger. Roger's question has to do with the comment about detectable warning panels. And it would be my overwhelming preference that this project install 2 ADA compliant ramps on either side of passageway. Because both passageway and technology way, at least based on what's presented here, appear to be public ways. And when we have developments like this that are coming in with this amount of parking and just development in general, and particularly improvements to their pedestrian facilities, installing these is not a huge expense, and it's actually required by federal law and has been for decades in order to meet the Americans with Disabilities Act. Also of late, last week, 2 weeks ago, there was a new federal document that was passed, and this is just sort of for everyone's information, that specifies ADA requirements with very specifically within public rights of way. And that actually goes on to, it's sort of hot off the presses and it's been in draft form for a really long time. So a lot of people are still trying to figure out what it includes. But one of the things that I've read up on recently is that for driveways under stop control, you should probably also have a set of detectable warning panels at your driveways in addition to the intersection with passageway. But I would defer to your team to look into that more specifically with regard to the driveways. But I do feel very strongly that they should be at passageway, regardless of the fact that they don't exist anywhere else. Because if we only if we didn't do anything because it didn't exist somewhere else, then we just wouldn't have them anywhere. And just more broadly, I think to follow up on Noah's comment, you know, it may seem as though your staff and clientele and perhaps adjacent neighbors here, other businesses or whatnot, are not within, you know, are currently living within a distance that requires driving. I just, I think it's worth noting worth reminding all of ourselves, the intensity of development literally in your backyard here. And so one, you know, wow, what an incredible opportunity that would be for your staff or, you know, someone that lives just on the Downs Road near here, to be able to walk or bike to this area, to this very busy facility as opposed to driving. And so I think some of those things, while they might seem small and extra, I think over time, which is kind of our job here, go a long way to encourage those type of uses. So that would be all that I have for comments.
Roger, do you want to add, or are you still deferring?
I'm not sure is that the question? Is that the question I asked? The only, I'm fine with whatever she said. But the only, I do have to say something about the bikes. We have this conversation in the transportation committee all the time. Now, this business, animals come to this business, right? Somebody brings an animal to this business. Now, maybe there's an accommodation to bring an animal on a bike. All right? If they're small enough, I guess. So, you know, I think you need to put some bike racks in. You know, but I'll just leave it at that. That's my own personal opinion. I think you gotta look at each situation and what the business model is, and is it realistic? And or are we just saying, this is what we're gonna do, this is the model we're gonna do, and regardless of what the business is, it doesn't matter. So
It's also required by our site plan ordinance, and the applicant always has the option, correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, to come forward and meet that requirement or seek a waiver from that requirement or pay an in lieu fee in some form for that requirement. So they have some options there, because you're right, because there are instances where it may not make a lot of sense, but in a lot of cases, I think it does make sense.
We can add bike racks. That's low cost. It's easy to do.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. Rick?
Yeah, I'm going to address your waiver for the access to the site. You certainly have demonstrated to me that the growth of this business, which bodes well for the Keepers Scarborough LLC, but you have not yet given me enough to grant a waiver for having 3 access points to this site. I think you can do it with 2 access points and eliminate the one in the middle. It appears that is basically a lot for EVs and handicap, which is great, close to the building and going to meet the ordinance. But I don't think you need an entrance just to get into that one. And I think you can do it from the first entrance as you're coming into the property from Route 1. So I'm not in favor of having the 3 access points, because our ordinance says 1 full service and we're giving you 2. So you're really getting a waiver. But I'm not willing to give you 3.
Okay, yeah, if I could speak a little bit more about that, I'd like to. I guess, so right now, as you described, someone comes in through here, either parks here or goes to the drop off and then exits out through here. And then someone coming in, not going to this first entrance and just going to park back at the facility, goes back there and then goes out. I guess if we were to close this entrance, that would be kind of forcing traffic from the public way through the parking lot to get to that drop off, creating some potential for what I would say would be potential conflict for pedestrians and just general congestion in that area that wouldn't be there if we could have that additional entrance to allow people to continue to go through here. I mean, I guess in terms of some additional signage, as some of the other members talked about, could help with some directional things. But we do think that it would be important to have that additional full service driveway.
All right, well, I'm not gonna vote for it then. Sorry. I'm done.
Okay. I'm not inclined to grant a waiver for a third driveway either. Actually, you have a waiver for a second driveway. Now it's the one that you've got now is a one-way drop off only. I don't believe you would need a waiver if you're closing that driveway and opening another one, because that you still would have two and you had a waiver for two driveways. You don't have a waiver for three, and I don't think you need the third access. I understand. I understand your concern about people walking through the parking lot, which actually then raises the question of if a parking lot is large enough, you need a walkway designated in it so that people can actually walk safely through a parking lot. I don't believe, does anybody know what size the parking lot is going to be for that walkway? Or
You haven't got that memorized yet.
you don't have it
believe
on the top of your head, off the top of your
Uh,
head yet?
I believe it's when more than 50% of spaces are located more than 50 feet. But I can look that up right now.
Yep.
There you go. Now it's fixed.
So you need a walkway.
I guess there is a walkway, I guess,
Where?
along the road that someone walks to and goes over to. I don't know if that meets requirement off the top of my head, but
I think all that does, that gets people down to the sidewalk. I don't think that is going to solve the problem through the parking lot.
there also is, I believe the waiver that you referred to was approved for separation from the existing entrance and not for an additional driveway, because that was not a full service driveway. So that's my understanding for that, just at least, but.
I need to hear from you. You're fighting with us, so go ahead.
No, I'm just trying to see if there's a way to allow this. I think it only increases the functionality throughout the site and doesn't really decrease anything. It's at the end of a dead end street cul-de-sac. It's not a huge amount of traffic that's going past this. So
The ordinances call for one driveway and a waiver if there's a second driveway.
right, that's what we're asking for.
No, but you've got three driveways. You're proposing three driveways.
Right, the existing one is not a full service driveway.
I'm not clear that it's necessarily full service or just one way. You have three driveways.
Yeah, I guess the other point would be that there's three, I'm not trying to, trying to fight here, but there's three lots that are these properties, and if these were to be developed individually, they would have 3 driveways.
Correct, but they're not being developed individually. I think this is just going to have to depend. Let me back up just for a moment. I do not believe you have made the case of the burden of proof that you need 3 driveways. And that's what's required. The applicant has the burden of proof. In my opinion, you have not met the burden of proof. Now, for other folks on the board, you may have met the burden of proof. I think we're going to have to bifurcate the any draft motion. Although at this point, I'm not sure that the draft motion should go through yet.
There's,
I'm going to bifurcate the draft motion to see where people stand on the driveways.
so just, sorry, I don't know that word exactly, but I
I-
just want to make sure I understand what you're saying there. Are you taking a draft vote to check? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm taking an actual vote to check as to whether people will agree to a waiver.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
And only on the waiver, and then it would go through with a draft motion, which may or may not have a waiver in it.
Right. So if the draft motion, or if the waiver fails, then we can talk about what would need to be done to close off an entrance or do something with one of the other entrances.
Correct, that could be a condition of approval.
Okay. All right, just want to make sure I was all clear. Thank you.
Yes, it's getting late. It's been interesting today. Roger,
I'd like to reclaim my time from Jen.
I'm not sure you had any time left, but go ahead.
On this, this one-way access point, I'm trying to recall when the property was before the planning board before, and I believe that besides that parking area, it was also designed as a drop-off. So if we require them to eliminate that point right there. That means people who want to drop off will come in from the far end of the parking lot, drive through the parking lot, drop off, go back out in the street, and then have to basically go back to the far end of the parking lot again and then come in and.
If they're going to stay. Sometimes it's the drop off and they leave.
Well, we don't know,
Right,
okay? So, and this, now, if this entranceway was demarcated by strictly like, say, a drop off exit or entrance only or access only, something like that. Because that, to me, that's going to create. I understand the waiver and the ordinance and all this stuff here, but I just wonder if this is going to create or negate the purpose of what they did when they were before the board previously to try and create the drop off area, drive in, drop off, go out.
Rachel, there's a hand up from the applicant team.
okay, there's a hand up from the applicant team. Let's hear it.
So John Hartz, thanks again for taking the time here. I guess it's a point of clarification from you all. It seems that the ordinance is relatively purposeful in differentiating a site versus a lot. And, the language that's used here to say that there's only one, it says there should be no more than one full service street or driveway connection from any lot to any street, except when additional entrance exit must be used to prevent traffic hazards or safety for pedestrians. The question I would have is, does the fact that it says from any lot versus from any site carry any weight to suggest that each lot is allowed to have its own full service street or driveway? And then 2, if that's not the case, is there an argument here to Aaron's point that, the safety reasons for pedestrians is enough to be able to divert, call it 70 parking spots away from, pedestrian traffic, to keep them away from the front of the building?
I'm going to ask the planning department to opine on the question of lot versus site.
Happily, thank you. I would suggest that a lot would have a use that one would park at. And this particular lot has access, although it has access to the street, it also has access to another building. So we had concerns about this when it came in on its own, being on an individual lot. Had I had my druthers as the planning director, I would have had you combine lots, but they are under different ownership. Because at some point, what you have to consider is this particular lot that only has a parking lot on it right now and a little bit of developable land may someday be sold for another user, and then you have a large parking lot that's adjacent to another. So I think therein lies the whole dilemma, and it doesn't really even apply. I would like to see the middle closed off for access points. And I think then you've really tied your parking lot to your building lot, and then they're really connected. But as it is now, if you leave the middle, this parking lot can be developed by itself down the road and have no real need to be attached.
Yeah, I'm speaking as the landlord here, you're absolutely right. There's an outside chance that, 5, 10, 15 years down the road, whether it's because, Rare Breed's operations slow down, there's the potential for breaking this lot into its own discrete lot, allowing someone else to use the existing parking space for some other purposes, whether that means coming back to the planning board and putting a Java Joe's or whatever else there on the remaining land. But that was, I guess, my most pointed questions. Is the lot definition here hold any bearing to say that it's a lot in the traditional sense of individual parcel of land?
Okay, and as I hear what Autumn is saying, is actually the parking lot has two exits, two ways to access. One is from the main road from Enterprise Drive, and the other is through the other parking lot and out again onto Enterprise. So to that extent, the middle lot, the middle access is superfluous. And I would also say in terms of pedestrian safety, if that is closed off and that is going to be reserved primarily for ADA and for folks who are charging their cars, the fact that they would not have to worry about people coming in past them consistently through an access is also beneficial to public safety. So if people have to walk a bit to drop off their pets, that's what happens. If they want to drive through the lot and drop off their pets at the drop off and exit onto the cul-de-sac, that's, from my opinion, that's fine as well. I do appreciate the offer to put in the bike rack. I think as more and more homes go into the Downs area, you are going to start seeing some folks who find it very convenient to live there and to walk or to take a bike. As far as the ADA ramp, I guess just kind of aghast that it wasn't put in when that passageway came through. There's no ADA ramp that was put in on passageway? And that was only built 3 years ago and nobody.
I do have it up on the aerial and it looks like evidently not. Although I would note that the Barton on the Judas memo prepared by Bill Bray does sort of speak to the point that Jen brought up, that Bill recommended that both sides of passageway be added, have those detectable warning strips added to the plan. So that is included in the current draft motion in front of the planning board.
All right, thank you. Roger.
Yeah, regarding, at the access in entrance only, would it make any sense to, make that a full service entrance and eliminate the one that's across from the, salon? And somehow widen that parking area that we approved previously to accommodate two-way traffic going in there, and that way you would still have your drop-off accommodations. And people then would just go back around circle and then go back into the parking lot, the larger lot.
I know for the existing, that existing one-way entrance that you're referring to, it does already have the waiver for the separation requirement, so I guess adding an exit out with that close to it, I would have some potential concerns about. And then that would kind of create a situation where I guess the two-way there would allow someone to exit with not having to go through the one-way in front of the building, which I think is what you were trying to do with that. It does create the larger parking lot with no exit on one end, which isn't desirable from an access standpoint. And also probably from an emergency access standpoint, if someone needs to get there immediately. But it's a good suggestion.
Well, I think you're confronted with a situation where you're gonna end up with only two access points. And so I'm just thinking that middle one could be expanded if you can do that. And that could also eliminate any possibility of a walkway or anything else like that. You know, and still provide your drop-off area. In other words, reduce all of the flow of traffic all over the place.
We're attempting to engineer this, and that isn't our role at this meeting. Yeah, I'm trying to work through something that would help the applicant and would give us the detail that we need to say that this is okay. And at this point, I personally don't think I've got that comfort. Because now we have an alternative. We have a close it off, and what does that look like? We have a make it two-way. What does that look like? Close off the other thing. What does that look like? I'm not ready to take a vote. I don't know. There's a draft motion. Eric has been feverishly adding details. It's up to the committee, it's up to the board if it wants to take a vote now or see this again. With the parking lot issue, basically the parking lot is the whole issue, with the access issue.
Are we talking about a vote for the waiver?
No, we're talking about a vote for all of it right now.
I guess the vote for the waiver would be important because we've kind of looked at the different options and gone through them, and in our evaluation, this is the most favorable and provides the best access and maneuverability throughout the site for us. So we would
So
have to vote on that.
So what you would prefer is a vote on whether you get three entrances.
I guess I don't think it really does. You know, if we can decide whether or not three entrances are allowed, that would be helpful. And then if not, we can, you know, as a condition of approval, work with staff to develop a plan to show which exit we would close, or if we would make something one way. That would be the favorable way, I believe, to do that, to kind of move the process along and not lose a month.
Okay, let's take a vote on the waivers. the waiver that's listed on the draft motion is to permit more than one full service access to the site. That's actually not the question. Because they've proposed two full service accesses and one-way access. They really have proposed three entrances to the site. And the waiver should be the plan to permit three
Site access.
site
points.
access points. That is the waiver. Do I hear a motion? Does anybody want to motion that three access points be approved? There is nobody who is willing to make that motion, therefore, three access points are not approved. So you have the two access points. Does anybody want to make a motion about the two full service access points?
Madam Chair, I guess if I may ask a question on this
Mhm.
point of information for me. Would it be best for us to make the motion on this, have the discussion, and then vote it up or down? Or is it best to, if you don't support it, do not make the motion? It's fine.
Well, if we make a motion, then we can discuss what the motion means.
Okay.
So two access points. That's a waiver required under the ordinance.
I guess I'm a little confused because there is two access points currently.
Yeah.
So I'm confused what we're voting on.
But excuse me, two full service access points.
Okay, I got you.
Two full service access points. Right now, there is one-way access point. But we've already said there cannot be three access points, whether they're full service or not.
Okay,
So now the request is, the waiver is, are there two full service access points? The ordinance specifies that there should be one full service and a waiver may be granted to provide two. So that would be what we're voting on now.
okay, thank you.
Roger?
I'll make a motion that the applicant be for a waiver for two full access points.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll
Second?
second it.
All right, second with Jim. Is there discussion? Go ahead, Ben.
I think that two full service access points, given the layout of the site, would be appropriate. I think if you have one, you're gonna have just traffic jams going all over the place trying to get wherever the one access point is, it's gonna cause traffic jams. So I think that I would support, if I were voting on this waiver, I would support the two full service access points.
Thank you. Hearing no more discussion, we'll take a vote. The site plan review ordinance, a waiver on that, section 4B1F, to permit more than one full service access to the site. In this case, two accesses are proposed as discussed with the planning board. Call the roll, Eric.
Sorry. James Hebert,
No.
Rachel Hendrickson,
Yes.
Roger Beely,
Yes.
Jennifer Ladd,
Yes.
Rick King.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion passes. What that means and what Eric is going to now try to write onto the draft motion, that the applicant will meet with the planning department to determine which two shall be the full access. And all of the details connected to making that work.
Yep.
So that if you choose the middle road, that's okay. You've got two full access. That's it.
Yep, we appreciate the flexibility on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
can I just ask a question?
Sure.
What you just voted on is only access, driving access. You
Correct.
did not vote on anything else about this plan, correct?
No, just the access.
So they're gonna need to come back in order to get the site plan approved.
No, we have a draft motion for that. They will work contained in the draft motion. So they will work with the planning department to determine how those two access, which of the three will become two full access sites.
Okay, so can I make a request then as part of the planning process? I brought up the issues with their plantings. And
I believe, Eric, do you have,
documentation that they will need to work with planning department to,
Yep, that's been added in as a condition.
all right, thank you.
yeah, one of the things that we've done, if you notice, is added some spaces. So that when Eric starts to write quickly, that means he's putting in an extra request, an extra condition. And he wrote that I saw him writing that for the plantings. All right, in that case, Eric, can I have your scrolls?
So I actually did it on my laptop this time, so
Oh, Lord,
hopefully it'll be a little easier.
teeny tiny print. All right, draft motion, Keeper Scarborough LLC, ME Vet, site plan review. I move to approve the project titled MVMC Parking Expansion as proposed by Keeper Scarborough LLC as depicted in plan sets prepared by Sebago Technics dated 8/28/23 with the following findings and conditions. Findings, the project includes construction of a 70-space parking expansion along Technology Way. The planning board finds this off-street parking is located a reasonable distance from the principal building or use in accordance with the zoning ordinance section 11I. The board also finds the project meets the requirements of the site plan review and zoning ordinances with the following waivers and conditions. Waivers, 1, site plan review ordinance section 4B1G to permit 2 full-service access points to the site. Conditions, prior to, how do I move this up? Okay. Conditions, 1, prior to the start of construction, a pre-construction meeting is required. The meeting shall include the appropriate town staff, the developer and their site contractor, and is to be coordinated through the planning department. All plan modifications are to be completed prior to scheduling the pre-construction meeting. 2, prior to the pre-construction meeting, the applicant shall A, confirm lot coverage meets the maximum 75% coverage requirement of the HP zoning district. B, confirm 15-foot vegetated buffer strip is provided along Technology Way. C, address the comments in the Barton and Lojanish memo dated 9/11/23. D, address the comments in the Haley Ward memo dated 9/12/23. E, update the plan sets to reflect items discussed at the 9/18/23 planning board meeting. This includes 1, addition of alternative transportation provisions. 2, work with staff to determine the appropriate mix of native planting species. 3, update the plans to show only 2 accesses onto Technology Way. 4, add a walkway through the parking lot for pedestrians to access the principal building. This shall be reviewed by the planning department. Is there a second? Second from Jim Hebert. Additional, did we get it all?
I just have a quick clarification on that.
Yep.
Item E, number 4, addition of the walkway through the parking lot to the principal building.
Yes,
Um,
that's striping usually.
yeah, so I guess we kind of split the parking lot, so, depending upon where you are, you could go to one walkway to the left that goes up to Technology Where you could go to the right towards.
My suggestion is that you work with the planning staff and they'll make sure
Okay.
that you're in compliance
Okay,
with the ordinance on that.
okay, I just wanted to, clarify to make sure we're not adding maybe a physical sidewalk in increasing the development area, and that would throw some wrenches
Well,
in
while
things.
we might like you to do that, we're not asking you to do that.
Okay,
As I said, good painting helps.
okay, thank you.
All right, would you call for the vote, Eric?
James Hebert,
Yes.
Rachel Hendrickson.
Yes.
Roger Beely,
Yes.
Jennifer Ladd,
Yes.
Rick Manking.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Next item on the agenda, staff report.
Oh, that's the computer.
I don't have anything major, but I don't know about Autumn. We have quite a few ordinance changes going on, but we've been kind of talking about that. Had a couple meetings, so.
Yeah, so at your next meeting, you will have the ordinance change for lighting coming up, and then we have some seafood sales, ordinance changes, and a few others on the works for the rest of the year. I'll probably still, I don't want to steal Jim's thunder, never mind.
Oh, you got
Okay.
thunder?
You tell him.
All right, let's, when the planning board comments come up. Okay, minor development reviews,
None at this time.
administrative amendment report,
None at this time.
correspondence,
None at this time.
planning board comments.
Here you go, Jen, kick it in.
Take it, Jen.
I won't. Next Tuesday, week from tomorrow, our transportation committee in support with town staff will be holding a workshop here in this room. Nope, just kidding. Public safety, I thought it was here. To take input from the members of the public on a number of items that are relevant to our townwide transportation master plan. It's sort of intended to be interactive in that it's not like a come and sit for a presentation. It's come and literally provide your ideas, some mapping exercises and things like that, from 4 to 8. From 4 to 8, so you can drop in. And you don't have to stay a long time, just come, give us your brilliant ideas and then be on your way. And so in particular, this is open to the public, but it would be wonderful to hear input from any of the folks on this board as well. I know these are items that come up for us frequently. If for some reason you are not able to come in person on the 26th, you can email any of us. You can email Autumn, you can email me or Angela, any of your ideas. And there's more information about this on the town's website and was included in the newsletter. Yeah, so. hope to see
Thank
there.
you.
Did you say a week from this Tuesday?
Yes, the 26th.
Awesome, thanks.
Other comments? Rick?
Reminding my fellow colleagues of Scarborough Sustainability Day on Sunday, October 1st. You might be a lucky resident that could walk away with a new heat pump water heater for your home. But anyway, lots of information going to be out actually at the sustainability table that we have, all of this. Hopefully it'll be a nice day and we'll have most of it outside in terms of the exhibitors. We're seeking some input from our residents, and you certainly fall in that role too when we talk about what are some of the elements that, or some projects that might be considered in the future for us to tackle. And we're looking at ways of getting some solid funding within the sustainability committee has access, or hopefully will have some access to funding that could be laid as seed money for grant projects or things of that nature. So we're looking for ideas. Come one, come all, and there will be a couple of food trucks there, I understand. So fun time for all. I expect to see you all there. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else? I attended the Long Range Planning Committee meeting. We think we've wrestled the landscaping to the ground. It's been a lot of interesting work. Let me just caution all of us that as these ordinances come through with their changes, we're going to have to really relearn some of where some of these ordinance details are. I've gotten used to looking at different places. But what we are seeing is a consolidation. So we're going to, it may take a little while to remember where everything is as the new stuff starts to come through. And a lot more is going to be coming through. So compliments to Autumn and Eric and the work they've done, both getting us organized better, I think, to do our job, to do our work, and setting us up for some good success next year with a change in the way we're doing that work. And the change in the ordinances, which is eliminating an awful lot of inconsistency and duplications. And just making our job a lot easier, because in some cases, we no longer have to think, well, I think that's robust landscaping. But there'll be some definitions that we can work with. And that's extremely helpful, and will be very helpful to the applicants as well, because they won't be trying to figure out what we're going to say. It will be really clear what their responsibility is, and that's helpful. Anything else? I will not be here at the next meeting. Rick Meinking will be chairing this. I will be in Cape Breton listening to music. Motion to adjourn? Moved. Second?
Second.
I see hearing no objections. We're adjourned.